so desperate for nostalgia right now.
Yeah.
The world wants that so bad, and it's like people just yearning for, a time when things were a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Will Smith is basically a walking example of everything people are starting to hate about Hollywood. Think about it. This was a man who had it all. At one point, he was one of the most beloved figures in the entire industry. Fame, money, massive success, a loyal fan base that rode for him no matter what. He was the leading man, starring in blockbuster after blockbuster with what looked like the perfect family life to match. But as we all know now, that picture-perfect image didn't hold up. It slowly cracked apart. From being publicly lectured by Jada over her affair with their son's friend, something he agreed to air online for the whole world to watch, to being constantly portrayed as weak, emasculated, and spineless, it all piled up. And then came the slap, the Chris Rock moment that instantly became one of the most humiliating pop culture events of the decade. From that point on, it was obvious why Will Smith's reputation tanked so hard. The arrogance, the fake positivity, the lack of backbone, it all made him impossible to take seriously anymore. After that, Hollywood turned cold. Projects dried up. Chris Rock roasted him in his special, the public laughed, and Will Smith slowly faded into irrelevance. But someone who's been Hollywood's golden boy doesn't just accept disappearing. If he wanted to stay famous, stay relevant, or even land whatever acting roles were left, he had to fix his image. The problem? His public perception was at an all-time low. And over the past few months, we've watched him try and fail to rebuild it in real time. Honestly, it's become a masterclass in how not to do PR. Let's rewind to late March when he dropped his first album in over 20 years. Out of nowhere, Will Smith was suddenly everywhere. Interviews, headlines, social media, non-stop. On the surface, it looked like a comeback attempt, maybe even an apology wrapped in music. He claimed the album was about the parts of himself that had been banished, the version of him that was never allowed on the radio. Almost like he wanted people to believe the real Will Smith was finally here, and the weak, embarrassed version would vanish overnight. Instead, he got clowned hard. People dragged the album as corny, cringe, and painfully calculated. Some even called it a pointless apology tour for the dumbest Oscar moment in history. Not exactly the redemption he was hoping for. Then came the next move, his song Pretty Girls. The music video had insane production value, no doubt about that, but it didn't matter. The video racked up around a 60% dislike ratio almost immediately. People mocked it as a midlife crisis. Others called it a humiliation ritual. One comment even labeled it the gayest straight song they'd ever heard, while another begged him to take whatever dignity he had left and quietly disappear. Brutal. So clearly, music wasn't saving him. That meant switching tactics. If he couldn't win people back with albums, he'd chase Generation Z directly through TikTok. Suddenly, Will Smith was popping up all over everyone's feed doing awkward videos with random influencers like Brooke Monk. People noticed how strange it looked. He had no real connection to these creators, many of whom were 30 years younger than him. Every appearance felt forced, overly planned, and painfully obvious. It looked less like authenticity and more like a full Hollywood PR machine trying to shove Will Smith back into everyone's good graces by borrowing influencer clout. And once again, it didn't work. Take his interview with School of Hard Knocks, a YouTube and TikTok channel focused on financial literacy. Will Smith appeared out of nowhere, speaking about how money doesn't bring happiness, how fame is isolating, and how he's struggled emotionally. On paper, it sounds deep, but something felt off. Everything he said felt rehearsed, polished, and artificial, like he was performing vulnerability instead of actually living it. The comments noticed immediately and called him out. Still, he didn't stop. He kept pushing himself into algorithms non-stop, almost desperately, because in Hollywood, relevance is survival. Lose it and everything collapses. But watching someone try this hard to manufacture relevance is honestly uncomfortable. Then came June 11th, 2025. People walking past King's Cross Station in London were suddenly met with Will Smith performing his biggest hits from the 90s. Completely random. A crowd formed. This time, the strategy was nostalgia, the old Will Smith, before everything went wrong, the version people wanted to remember. He even talked about this idea on the Broken Record podcast.
Desperate for nostalgia right now.
Yeah.
The world wants that so bad, and it's like people just yearning for, a time when things were a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the footage, the crowd looks dead. No energy, no excitement. The comments said it all. This felt forced, transparent, and sad. His attempts at authenticity rang hollow, and the nostalgia angle only reminded people how far he'd fallen. So he tried one last move, attaching himself to KSI. Suddenly, they're friends, TikToks together. Will Smith shows up supporting KSI at a Legends vs. Creators match. At first, nobody cared. Then KSI dropped a Try Not to Laugh video featuring Will Smith. Some viewers enjoyed seeing Will interact with internet culture, but the real issue was obvious. This wasn't organic. It was a PR stunt, a desperate attempt to force likability, and that's the fastest way to make people reject you. The comments were ruthless. People referenced the slap non-stop. Others outright called it a cringe, out-of-touch publicity move. To a lot of viewers, it looked like Will Smith just Googled biggest influencer and went with KSI despite having nothing meaningful in common. Sure, they both do music, but let's be real, KSI isn't famous because of his music. Maybe Will thought KSI's insanely loyal fanbase would rub off on him. Maybe he hoped to leech some Gen Z approval. Either way, it failed. And that failure highlights a bigger truth. People don't care about celebrities like they used to. Old-school Hollywood star power is dead. This botched redemption arc is a warning to every out-of-touch celebrity still clinging to relevance. The gap between regular people and Hollywood elites has never been wider, and Will Smith is living proof of it. In an award show or an interview, everything was carefully staged for them. The laughs were pre-recorded, the press coverage was curated, and their real personalities stayed safely behind gated mansions and private security. These people lived almost entirely cut off from the real world. But then the internet happened. More and more clips started circulating online. The fake virtue signaling during COVID, that awkward Imagine sing-along, the creepy Diddy party vibes, and years of out-of-touch, performative political takes all piled up. Slowly but surely, the mask slipped. Their narcissism was exposed in real time, and the public turned on them. We saw this play out perfectly with Rachel Zegler. She was on an incredible run, landing massive roles at a very young age. She looked destined to become one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, but her rise came at the absolute worst time. Once she landed the role of Snow White, literally a dream job for most actresses, her real personality started coming out in interviews. And for the first time, people collectively noticed how hollow so many modern actors sound. This time, people didn't let it slide. They called her dismissive, arrogant, and painfully virtue signaling. And sure, she was probably just repeating whatever she thought Hollywood wanted to hear. But suddenly, Snow White wasn't about being saved by a prince or dreaming of true love. It was about leadership and self-empowerment. That tone completely alienated audiences, especially at the worst possible moment when people were already exhausted with modern actors and endless remakes. By this point, after years of nonstop preaching, people simply stopped caring. We're now at a place where you can smell fake relatability from a mile away. And it's wild when you compare that to decades ago, when celebrity speeches were actually praised. Back then, stars seemed genuine, people felt seen, and Hollywood figures gained real loyalty, which turned into more fans, more money, and more power. That's exactly why they kept doing it, saying whatever they thought audiences wanted to hear. But now, we see these speeches for what they really are: pure performance. Ego-stroking, career-climbing, influence-chasing nonsense. And the irony? That power is gone. Look at recent US elections. Nobody cares who celebrities endorse. Look at movie releases. Not that long ago, people lined up around the block just because a big name was attached. Now, those same movies flop hard. People are over it. They don't care who's acting, and the constant performative activism has become straight up nauseating. In 2025, people have real problems. Nobody wants to be pandered to. Nobody wants those "I'm just like you" moments. People just want to be entertained. And if celebrities can't deliver that, audiences will find it somewhere else. And this is exactly why Will Smith can't pull off a comeback. The Oscar slap wasn't just shocking, it snapped people out of the illusion. It exposed how fake and uncaring Hollywood really is. No one protected Chris Rock. No one stepped in. Will Smith sat back down and then still got his Oscar and a standing ovation. That moment showed just how bizarre and disconnected the industry is. Is it really surprising that Hollywood and LA look like they're crumbling now? This isn't a thriving machine, it's a dying one. So when Will Smith goes on press tours trying to fix his image, acting like people will just forget the past and believe whatever they're told, it perfectly explains why nobody cares about Hollywood anymore. And honestly, watching it all slowly fall apart is kind of satisfying.